Hi everyone, it's Roger and James here from the What's on Disney Plus podcast. In this video, we're going to be doing a retro review of Brother Bear. This episode is available early to Patreon and our YouTube channel members. They get access to these things a little bit earlier before they get them available to everybody else. And you can do so from as little as $2 a month. And it helps support the channel and the podcast and keeps everything going on. So a huge thank you to all of them for all of their support. So let's now talk Brother Bear. Now, when we say this is a retro review, I'm going to put my hands up first off. Not a retro review because I'd never seen it before. This was the first time I'd seen it. And it was a bit of an odd one. It was a little bit of an odd one, I'll be honest. I don't remember there being a lot of hype about this one. It was a bit of an odd one. It came out in 2003. It seemed very late, a very late animated movie. I mean, I think Pixar at that point had completely taken over, and this movie just seemed to fell through the cracks. They made a sequel to it, which is bizarre. But
the sequel was like one of the final gasping breaths of that era of Disney where they were making sequels to literally everything. So
what do you think of Brother Bear?
So also my first time watching it. I may have watched it a long time ago. I can't really remember if I did or not, to be honest, but having watched it, I might as well have never seen it because I didn't remember anything from it. And I agree, it's an odd one. I do remember the buzz around it when it came out being like, oh, this is a return to form for Disney for like the people who grew up with the 90s. And then having seen it now, I'm like, yeah, this is nothing like the 90s ones other than it being hand-drawn. And it desperately wanting to be the Lion King and kind of missing that mark just a little bit.
I'm just looking here because it pulled in $291 million. So it's all right. It only made $85 million during its domestic run and went on to 160, so a total of 250 million. Not a big hit, but not bad either. I watched, and do you know what really got me? Was the opening bit was I was like, how old is this movie? Because it was like, it was like really small and it looked a bit grainy and it was not, and I'm going, this just doesn't, it kind of caught me the same way that it Treasure Planet did. I'm not Treasure Planet, the Atlantis movie. It looks horrible. It's like, it looks really bad. And then at a certain point, then the movie opens up when he transforms into an animal and suddenly it all looks more stunning and it's colorful and the animals are all, and I'm like, why didn't it look like this from the beginning? It's like
it's probably an allegorical symbolism thing where as a human he's in a dull world and all blah 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 blah. Yeah, usual. But I agree it didn't land. It was kind of going for that Wizard of Oz moment where Dorothy first comes out into Oz and the movie shifts from black and white to color, and it just missed completely.
It just looked very. The thing is, it wouldn't have been so bad, but I think it didn't help with them shrinking the screen down. I know there's the big effect on the cinema, but when you got it on a big screen, it's like, why are they? What's going on?
I don't remember that actually happening. Maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention, but maybe we had slightly different versions of the movie as well.
I don't know. It just noticeably became bigger and brighter and bolder, and I don't know where they were going with it, but when you start a movie off and going, okay, it just didn't. It was just, and there's like this weird thing of like watching it and going, okay, I see what they're doing with it, and I like the bear and the brother thing. I get what they were doing. And the music, I mean, I'm like, it's like obviously Phil Collins kicks in and going, well, okay. I really liked Tarzan. I love that movie. I love the soundtrack. I'm going, okay, it's nice to have him back doing this. And it was just like, it felt a little bit like, let's take all the best bits from every movie we've done and just combo them all together. It's kind of okay, but I don't know. It was just like this very strange little movie. I wasn't too sure.
Yeah, like I said, kind of what you were saying just there. It felt a lot like they were trying to do the Lion King again. It's the journey of this particular character going from an immature young adult / kid to becoming one with nature and understanding his place in the circle of life and all that stuff. Obviously, they use different phraseology in this, but still.
just looking here, actually, Wikipedia does state one of the note for many of the critics was the aspect ratio of the story to it, of it opening up in standard widescreen and then kind of becoming 24 minutes into the picture, it then transforms into the anamorphic ratio of 2. And so what I would say, yeah,
Okay.
so it's literally in the response to that movie was what that was. I think being 24 minutes of it was a long time for it to be in that mode.
Well, like I said, they were probably aiming for the Wizard of Oz effect, where it's supposed to be you're awakening into the big, bright world of being an animal. And admittedly, the movie did get more interesting once he turned into a bear. You've got sidekick bear popping along to join him, but more importantly, you've got the two mooses or mooses.
Hey.
They honestly, I would have watched them for an hour and a half.
I think they might have been Canadian. I don't know what it was.
I mean, they were leaning into it too. I know one of them's Rick Moranis. And it was, I don't know the name of his partner, but they did a whole bunch of like commercials and they had their own show in Canada. So yeah, of course they leaned into their Canadian aspect of it and they were moose. So, but honestly, I would have watched them for an hour and a half. They were hilarious.
It's kind of, and it was, I think it's what got me as well was the bit when they jumped onto the mammoth, because I don't know why, but I hadn't put it in like a time zone. I kind of just assumed it was like 100 years ago, 200 years ago, sort of. And suddenly, like, a mammoth? Okay, we're going way back. We're going way back. I know, because it didn't really establish in some way.
I think the cave paintings at least kind of tried to set the tone that it's like, no, this is way back. This is in pre-civilization time period. But yeah, the mammoth definitely. But I love that little line where like, looks like you hunted me, eh? Or something. Like, I don't know why that line got me. I enjoyed that one quite a bit though.
I mean, yeah, how kind of, the thing where they're all around the water and they're all getting together, and then suddenly the dawning on, brother, that he killed the kid's mum, and then suddenly I was like, okay, that's pretty deep. And then obviously, there was a lot of it that I liked, and I thought it was very well done. And I would say it's like, give it a go if you have not watched it and you like animated ones, and but I can see why this one's kind of in the lost territory of like, it's just not it's not one of the big ones, but there's a lot of stuff I liked about it, but it's a very kind of average, kind of run of the mill. Like it's like a Disney movie by tick box, right?
Like we need this. It was very close to being a very good movie.
Yeah.
Like there were a lot of places where if it had been slightly different, then we would have bumped it up from mediocre to a better movie. Now, alternatively, it could have also gone from mediocre to absolutely terrible. And going into the how to make it better would take far longer than this podcast has. But you could see where the good ideas were, and they just didn't quite execute. One thing that you brought up there was the main character realizing that he was responsible for the kid's mother's death. I did appreciate that there wasn't any period where he tried to hide it. Once he realized it, he pulled the cub aside and he's like, hey, I got to tell you something. And he laid it out to him. And there was none of this like trying to hide it, and then it gets revealed in the big fight, and now the kid's got to deal with. No, it's just, he treated it as an adult, and that was really the transition moment for me for that character, where it was like, okay, he's no longer the kid. He taking responsibility for his action. He's not hiding it. He's apologizing, and then he's accepting the consequences too. Where the kid's like, I can't be around you. You got to go away for a while.
Yeah, and I mean the whole thing of him as well, like going back to being a bear to look after the cub, a bit like, probably only needed another 6 months and he would have been fine. He would have been going out. Bears would have been out. He would have been going out on his own. It's not like I don't know.
It's not like he didn't have a family structure available too. Maybe not direct blood, but you had that whole pack of bears that were salmon fishing over there.
The thing is, it's like, having watched a lot of National Geographic show, that whole thing of, that bears, when they've got the fish flowing in the river, they're all very friendly. And I like the fact that they didn't incorporate that. Like, they're all chatting and having a laugh because they've got loads of fish and they're all happy. You see them in the winter, they'll kill each other because it's very different. But I did like that whole aspect. And there was loads of it that I did like. It was just this kind of thing of like, it just, like 6-7 territory. It's not dreadful, it's not bad, it's enjoyable, it's perfectly fine, but it doesn't move into that next stage where it's like, I probably don't know if I would ever watch it again. I am glad I watched it. It's kind of, I've quite liked, this is like I like doing with these movies, of where we sometimes pick ones up that we've not seen, because it kind of fills in our Disney knowledge a little bit, those movies that slip through the net. And and it's like the kind of thing, okay, no, I'm glad I've seen it. I'm glad I've ticked this little box. But and again, I'm looking at it going, we've been to the park. When they don't have these characters at parks, that's usually a sign of when they've not connected with audiences. And I think that's where sometimes these movies, okay, yeah, no, that's not a big one, because it didn't instantly connect.
Right. And you can kind of tell that this is the kind of movie where they could have gone, all right, we can take these characters and we could turn Splash Mountain into a Brother Bear ride, or something along those lines. We can very easily morph something into this, and they didn't. Similarly, Atlantis could have taken over for the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea ride, which eventually became the Finding Nemo ride. But it didn't
actually beat this movie for the best picture. Which, see there again. This is a time when I went and saw Finding Nemo at the cinema.
That's because Finding Nemo was fantastic.
Yeah, I was 23 years old. I still went to see the Pixar movie at the cinema. This movie was like, I'll wait.
Yeah,
and so that was even as it's not like at that time of the period, I still was, yes, I probably wasn't watching as much Disney at that time, but it's still the big Pixar pulled everybody over, and Disney Animated just wasn't pulling it in. But yeah, it was up against Finding Nemo. And I remember there being a lot of buzz about that movie. We all went to cinema to see it, and everyone loved it. And I mean, it's a standing joke. When I remember one of my staff, she was like, "I've not." Every time she used to mention to people she hadn't seen Finding Nemo, she'd always say like how people would be like react like she'd like hadn't. Like, what?
How could you not have seen Finding Nemo? How did you not find Nemo?
Yeah.
But yeah, this comes from that, let's call it the second forgotten age of Disney or something like that. Starting in 2000 with Fantasia 2000 and ending probably around 2008 with Bolt being like the last one of it. We've actually been slowly working through this one, but I think we might skip a few of these, because I'm just going to go through the list real fast. You got Fantasia 2000, Dinosaur, Emperor's New Groove, which we did, Atlantis, which we did, Lilo and Stitch, which we probably won't do because that's the one on the list that people actually know. Treasure Planet, Brother Bear.
Watch that. Treasure Planet is on my list that I do actually want to watch.
I think we'll do that one. I do remember Treasure Planet, but I enjoyed that one, and I understand why it's kind of in this, but. Yeah. Anyway, after Brother Bear comes Home on the Range, which we will.
I've never seen it.
I think we'll leave it that way. And then you've got Chicken Little, Meet the Robinsons, and Bolt. And honestly, out of all of them, I think most people forget Chicken Little and Meet the Robinsons and Home on the Range even exist.
I haven't seen Meet the Robinsons.
I haven't seen any of them. Oops, sorry.
Chicken Little, it's not a bad movie, but I think the difference was Chicken Little and Meet the Robinsons and Bolt, because I think Bolt's a fun little thing.
I enjoyed Bolt.
She got a little rhino figure down here from the movie. I mean, I liked Bolt, but that was when they flipped to the computer generated. They were trying to kind of catch up with Pixar and trying to work out. But like Brother Bear, who was it? Brother Bear, then Home on the Range.
Home on the Range, yes. Yeah. The most positive thing I can say about Home on the Range was from the D23 2017 concert with Alan Menken. He played one of the songs from Home on the Range, and he even joked like, no one really wants to hear this, but he mentioned that a lot of that movie and a lot of the songs that they wrote for it were kind of the various teams working through 9/11, their feelings for 9/11. Granted, it came out 3 years later, but remember, these have very long production times, and he said at least specifically that the songs for Home on the Range were about kind of working through that. So that story is better than anything you will actually see in Home on the Range. But
so I think it's that kind of thing, like Brother Bear Scout, almost like it's like the you can see it coming, like literally was the second to last I mean, they did a few ones after, but the proper animated studios, you know, I'm not talking like the Heffalump movie and all the kind of, but that kind of thing of like, you can see where it was going. And Brother Bear, it's a shame because some of it looks absolutely gorgeous. You know, when they do that reveal shot and it goes and it looks great, and the you know, it's colorful, but it looks like something from there's a colorful version of the classic Disney look, which has been around for 50 odd years. And I think that was everyone was into something new at that point. And it's kind of funny now because I think like when it was Princess and the Frog went back and did it because everyone was after that because they hadn't seen it for years. Brother Bear just slipped through the net, and it's a shame because it's a solid movie, definitely worth checking out. If you've not seen it, I'm sure kids will like it. But it, like I said, just doesn't have that same kind of connection, I think, that everything else has around with Disney.
It definitely wouldn't be the first movie that I would go back and be like, all right, kids, we're going to watch Brother Bear. There are a number of movies I picked before that. I'm not even talking about stuff like Lion King or Aladdin. There's just movies in the back catalog that people have probably missed that I would pick over it. But that said, if someone really wanted to watch it, I'd watch it with them. If it was on TV, I might leave it on in like the background. Perfectly fine movie. Phil Collins does some good music in it. Acting's okay for the most part. And the kid is surprisingly not as annoying as he could have been.
No,
which is important.
Yeah. It's a nice, good, solid family movie. And I do think as well, if you've got kids and stuff, probably just the idea of putting something else on rather than watching Moana or Frozen 2, just to kind of break it up, might be not necessarily a bad thing, and just mix it up with some other animated movies, just to kind of things. But yeah, Brother Bear, solid movie, straight middle of the road. Wasn't blown away with it, but also was a bit like, this should have done a bit better, because it wasn't that bad.
It's certainly better than some of the movies that followed it. But even in this forgotten period, I'd still put it like under Treasure Planet, under Lilo and Stitch. I think Atlantis and Emperor's New Groove were both better movies. Yeah. So.
I think the trouble is there's nothing vastly rememberable about it. There's not like many major scenes that you kind of go. So it's very much middle of the road, but I'm glad I watched it. Let us know in the comments below what you think of Brother Bear. What do you remember about it? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Remember, again, you can go check us out over at whatsondisneyplus.com. Like, follow, and subscribe, and we shall see you guys soon. Later.
And I would insert a line from the movie here, but I actually can't remember any useful lines from Brother Bear to close this out with. A.